Hello. In this video we're going to explore the equation of a circle a little bit more and pull out some of the more subtle things. So, if you remember, the equation of a circle is r squared, where r is the radius, is equal to x minus a squared plus y minus b squared, where a and b are the center and r is the radius. This is just like finding the relationship of a line. The only difference is that instead of finding the slope and the y-intercept, I'm finding r in the center. So if we want to find the equation of a circle with center negative 4, 5, and radius 6, so let's do a right over here. Well, I can plug this right into the formula. 6 squared is equal to x minus 4 squared, put that bracket in there, plus y minus 5 squared. So 6 squared is equal to x plus 4 squared plus y minus 5 squared. Perfect. Notice I haven't written 6 squared as 36. I just leave it like that for now. So a really good question came up in class actually. So let's imagine I was to do a sketch of this circle. I'm just going to do a quick sketch over here. So we know the center we said was here was going to be negative 4, 5. And to get a feel for the shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to count out 6 horizontally and vertically. So negative 4, if I count 6 to the right, it's going to take me to 2, 5. If I count 6 to the left, it's going to be negative 10, 5. If I count 6 up, it's going to be negative 4, 11, and if I count 6 down, it's going to be negative 4, negative 1. So if I go and connect these now, we see this circle. Now, this is not a scaled diagram by any means, but it's to give the idea of these four kind of almost like, you think of them like compass points on the circle. You can always calculate them off the center. So what a student observed in class, they said, well, Mr. Miskew, if our center is negative 4, 5, and if we go left, we get negative 10, 5, and we go right, we get 2, 5. With a linear relationship, I can put any value of x in and it makes sense. This, I can't, because if I try and put in, say, x is 3, we can see x is 3 is not on the circle. And that was a very good point. And so what we can do is we can actually add a little bit to our equation here, is we can actually state what's called the domain of the relationship. And what that is are all the valid x values. So we know that negative 10 is going to be less than or equal to x, which would be less than or equal to 2. So you don't need this, but this is a nice little bit of information to include about the circle. So if you give this to someone, they can see that any value of x that's not within this domain, not within negative 10 to 2, is not going to make sense. Which brings us to part B. So if we want to find points on these circles, again, all we do is substitute and solve. So we want to find the points of the circle with x equals negative 2. So we can see x equals negative 2 is somewhere around here. And what's different about this is that, unlike a linear relationship, notice there's 2 points here. This point is x equals negative 2, and so is this point. So let's see what happens. So if I say 6 squared is equal to negative 2 plus 4 squared plus y minus 5 squared, I just have to now do some math and solve for the value. So let's see, 6 squared is equal to 2 squared is 4 plus y minus 5 squared. So let's actually write this 6 squared as 36. So therefore, I'm going to get 32 is equal to y minus 5 squared. So now I take the square root of both sides, so the square root of 32 is equal to y minus 5, so therefore y is equal to the square root of 32 plus 5. Okay, so now if I plug this in my calculator, I get y is approximately equal to something. And let's see what that is. That's approximately equal to 10.66. And so we can reason pretty well that that's the point up here on the circle, which kind of makes sense because it's not above 11, but it's pretty close in the circle. Seems to make sense. But then the question comes, well, wait a second, there's a point down here. And this brings us to our really important point of this video. And I really want you, if you take nothing else away from this video, I want you to take this away. Because I had to physically take the square root, I have to account for both the cases. I have to account for the plus and the minus situation. So the takeaway is that if you take the square root of a number, you have to account for the plus or minus. So and that means that y is not simply root 32 plus 5, it's also minus root 32 plus 5. So that is what gives us our second answer. So y is approximately equal to 10.66, or y is approximately equal to negative 0.65. Let's go negative 0.66. That is how we account for both the answers in these cases. So a little way just to articulate the idea that if you take the square root, you have to account for the plus or minus. Here's a little question that I always like to give people. If I give you x squared is 9 and x is equal to the square root of 9, and I said, what's x? Well, in this case, the answer is 3 because the square root is already there, so it's just plus 3. But in this case, since we have to actually take the square root, we have to account for both the plus or minus, we have to account both the plus or minus case. So that's plus or minus 3. Keep this idea in mind as you go forward. It really comes up all the time. Okay, let's do part C. So part C, we're going to find the points of the circle with x equals 3. So 6 squared is equal to 3 plus 4 squared plus y minus 5 squared. Like we said before, we know x equals 3 doesn't make sense for the circle. So something funny should happen, and in fact it does. We get 36 is equal to 49 plus y minus 5 all squared. So we end up with negative 13 is equal to y minus 5 squared. So we have to take the square root of negative 13. And that's where we have a problem. And this is the idea. If the number doesn't make sense, you're going to end up taking the square root of a negative. Really watch for that. Okay? The square root of a negative, you can't take the square root of a negative. And if you're working through a problem and you end up getting that situation, that means the value you substitute in doesn't make sense for some reason. Either that or you've actually done your calculations incorrectly. That's a whole other discussion. Okay, let's do part D. And really, part D is no different than any of the other parts. So y equals 6. So let's change colors again. 6 squared is equal to x plus 4 squared. Let me just double check this. 6 plus 6 minus 5 squared. So 36 is equal to x plus 4 squared plus 1 squared. So 35, there's a little copy error there. It's equal to x plus 4 squared. So the square root of 35 plus or minus, because I had to take it, is x plus 4. So therefore, x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 35. Now, this is, at this point, if I wanted, I could get my calculator and calculate the exact value, but you know what? At this point, there's no need for me to do that. There's no reason. So I'm just going to leave it like that. So these are the kind of core questions you can ask when dealing with the equation of